Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody. This is episode 274, Better on Draft Podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, it is another week and another Lions loss. Even though they didn't play this weekend, they played on Thursday, Thanksgiving. They still didn't have a win, and therefore I am not drinking anything. But if you are listening to this before this Sunday, so the 5th of December, when the Detroit Lions play the Minnesota Vikings, we're giving away 2 beers, and these are really, really good, really sought-out beers. A Doppio Medianoche from WeldWorks, and then a Drafting Table Malo. This beer, the first batch of this beer, was traded for a Nintendo Switch, folks. That's how sought out this beer is. So we are just giving it away. All you got to do is head to our Facebook page and make a choice. Figure out who we are going to beat. All of the entries lock at 1 o'clock on the 5th, so make sure you go check that out. That's 1 o'clock Eastern. No, nothing. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't got to follow. You don't got to tag your friends. You don't got to share to 8 people. All you have to do is just choose using the Facebook reaction system to see when the Detroit Lions are going to actually win a game. There is an option that says they don't win too, which you can choose. For me, I am drinking a white tea from Clarke. This is their the white tea one, as it says, and I also have, to follow that up, chocolate milk stout from Untitled Art. Dan, what are you drinking over there?
I actually have some Mead from Superstition, a little blackberry hacks. Now, I have a question about this contest we're running. What if they get more than one win? Are we putting everyone who chooses the winning
first win?
First win?
Yeah. If you read the rules, it says
I could have done that.
Win their first game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could have done that. Pick Seattle. No one's picking that game, it seems. That's going to be the one they probably win. Anyways.
Well, I mean, that implies that they're going to lose to Minnesota, Denver, Arizona, and Atlanta before. But
yeah, absolutely.
Rob, how you doing? What are you drinking?
Doing all right. Right now, I am drinking, also from Superstition, some peanut butter jelly crime. And on top of that, I have some Details and Dialects, a peach cobbler strong ale from Bottle Logic.
Well, Rob's going hard tonight. Wendy, what are you drinking?
So I was unable to get to my cellar to get some mead, but I did find some Kunin's White Devil in my refrigerator. And I also have a WeldWorks, their Cheeky Park, which was part of their mixed pack from the WeldWorks Invitational.
Awesome. Well, we do have a guest in studio. If you didn't notice, we have a couple of Meads being drank today, which means we're probably going to have a Meadery. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are and where you work and what you do there.
Hi, guys. I'm Chris from Fires Meadery, one of the owner-operators, along with Andrew, whose name and computer I'm on right now. We opened 2018, or started doing production initially in 2018, opened the taproom in 2019, and now we're running full bore. But I lead up our production. Andrew leads up sales, distribution, and just general day-to-day operations. And then we have a taproom crew, as well as a new operations manager who just more or less he's a go-to for everything.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us to chat about Mead. For those who maybe don't know what Mead is, maybe they listen for the beer content on the podcast. What exactly is Mead?
At its core, and actually defined in law, is that it has to be fermented from 51% honey, or 51% of the fermentation has to be honey, is how the law would define Mead fermentations. If you go down to it and you talk to homebrew level, it could differ a whole lot more, but at its heart, it's honey as the base fermentable instead of grain for beer or grape for wine or mix for distillates.
Now, you said you opened in 2018. What did you do before? Were you making mead your entire career? Is this your first foray into mead itself?
First professional foray into mead itself. Around the time we actually started the charter for Four Fires, which would have been back in 2016, 2017, I was hired in to Maumee Bay Brewing Co., and I was a brewer there for a while. Did R&D for them, kind of rebirthed the barrel program, introduced some sours for them, and then started the cider program.
Awesome. Now, when you're going through and you're making your mead, is everything like how do you define flavors? So, for example, like for beers, there's ales, there's lagers, and then you break it down even further. There is alt beers, everyone's favorite, obviously, brown ales, ambers, stouts, porters, IPAs. What are the different categories of meads?
I mean, there's definitely set categories now that have some historic value to them. But the industry is growing. So, I mean, anything that's said now could change. I mean, BJCPs just generally adapt as the years go on anyways. But the main categories right now, and the ones you're going to see more on shelves than anything else, first and foremost, is going to be a melomel. And that's generally in the realm of berries, but heavy fruit with honey. So a lot of the superstition stuff that you'll see, if it's not in the like an open category, like experimental, it could easily be classified into a melomel category. The biggest thing now to keep in mind is mead in its renaissance right now is kind of just where craft beer was in like the early to mid 90s. I mean, there's a lot of growth and a lot of knowledge to come still in our industry for it.
For license purposes, are you guys only allowed to make mead? Can you make any other form of fermented beverage within your site itself? And do you sell it?
We are currently licensed just with a wine license, which allows us to produce mead, wine, cider. We do produce cider when we're able to get apples. Last year was a little bit difficult. There was a late frost that kind of took out a majority of the apple crops in the region, which left us more or less without cider for all of last year. Much better this year. Very excited for some of the ciders that we have going in tanks right now, as well as some of the pressings, late season pressings that we're about to get. But we do make ciders. We're going to work on some lines of ice ciders for next year. We do make a range of meads as well too. So our lowest ABV thing that we've released mead side so far this year was a session made for Twin Oasts Oktoberfest. Their Oasttoberfest, we made a session version of our cast iron skillet peach cobbler called Das Peach that was 3.5% and just tasted like a liquefied peach cobbler.
I'm curious because I actually just made my first batch of homebrew mead about 2 weeks ago. What really got you into wanting to go down the road of this? This is something that's not really been touched on by a whole lot. You've got the big players, you got Superstition where I'm at. You've got a couple of them out there, but what really got you into this? It's really the kind of thing where I ask most people if they know what mead is and they tell me no. So what made you want to go forward with it?
The easiest answer is ignorance. I said what every idiot homebrewer says is, I can do that cheaper. I can save money. I don't have to buy these bottles. I can make this at home and I can save myself some money. And then I just never stopped digging down that rabbit hole. And here we are today.
That's a good point because mead does tend to run a little bit more expensive. And I can understand why. It does take a lot longer, kind of like your wines as far as the process goes.
It both can, but it doesn't. It can, but it doesn't have to. So we've got two different major styles for us, and we'll go through some of them throughout the show. But the two major styles that I can show off are still, which we serve kind of as a wine strength. These are more dessert wines for us. So they range sweeter, but they're anywhere from 10 to 16% and non-carbonated, whereas we have our 500 mils, which are done in like older style straight up bottles. And these are going to be lightly carbonated, but also range anywhere from that 3.5% to 10%. So there's a lot of variance allowed in there. And in that, so the stills, I would say for us, we generally don't like to release a still that's less than 4 months old. but just because of government regulations or government shutdowns or waiting on approvals, a lot of these stills have at least a year to a year and a half on them before the public and our members see them. Those carbonateds are an entirely different story. I'm pretty proud of the fact, actually, that for our hydromel program, which is the stuff that's 6 to 7% and generally almost always available, we have about 12 on tap at any given time in the tap room. From the time I pitch yeast to the time my bartenders pull that tap handle is about 18 days.
And that's pretty awesome. I was actually going to ask you next about the sparkling mead or the carbonated mead. Are you seeing a big market for that? It seems to be there's more and more of those coming out lately.
Year one, 100% of our sales were stills, which, it's all that you're going to see from some of the bigger producers in the country, because that's what they like to make. And it's, at times it's easier. It's definitely takes up a lot less space. Space has become a premium for us in the expansion of this, but year one, 100% of our sales were stills. Year two, I would say about 80 or 90% of them were. Last year, I think about 20 to 30% of our sales were stills.
So you do see it going up?
Massively so. I mean, we went from year one, 31 barrels, year two to 117 barrels. Last year, we did 324. This year, we dropped back a little bit, and we did a little bit more focus on some still product and banking some barrel product. So we did about 250. But next year, we anticipate a jump back up to about 600 or 700 barrels for the year.
That's awesome. Now, I'm taking a look through some of your meads that you currently have available. I noticed one with ghost peppers. So tell us a little bit about what is the mead with the most unique ingredients you've ever made. I'm kind of curious about that.
That one's tough. I mean, you could give a couple different answers on that. Like, we released a member bottle this year that was designed around making just an inherently expensive and opulent mead. It was called Splendor and Opulence. It was made with a blend of some select monovarietal honeys, heritage red raspberries, and then aged on Spanish saffron, French black truffles, Ecuadorian cacao nibs, and packaged with 24 karat gold flake. Wow. We've got one that I'm actually sipping on tonight, Thick, which was modeled after like an 80s candy bar. So this was a Bochet, and a Bochet is just a mead made with caramelized honey. So just cooking that honey, really getting that nice Maillard reaction to it. We aged in a Jackie O's iron furnace barrel for 30 months, and then went through every candy bar we could find and just found the ingredients for that. And any candy bar ingredient you could think of went into this. So the labeling for this says cacao nibs, peanut butter, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts, black walnuts, pistachios, espresso, salt, maple, vanilla, raisins, marshmallows, and it's all aged in those Jackie O's iron furnace barrels.
That sounds like a dessert waiting to be drank right now.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show, Nick. Thanks for joining us tonight.
The part-timer is back.
Glad to see you, buddy.
Yeah, part-timer is back. The basement is done. Brody's birthday's unfortunately passed, and I'm not violently ill like last week.
Well, what
are you drinking tonight?
So I haven't opened it yet, but I think this is my last can of Two Roots New West IPA. And then I'm not sure if Wendy's got her advent calendar already, but do you got it? Did you?
Ew. Mine's chilling in the fridge right now for later.
Chilling in the fridge right now. So this is the day 2 beer. I don't have the can with me.
You're behind.
I know. The day 3 will be day.
Just mix it. You got to put them in the same glass. If you miss a day,
no. Last year I did the advent calendar, and pretty much every beer in that advent calendar was wonderful. Nice. This year's they started off with a Helles, and it was a pretty damn good Helles too. So
awesome.
Day 3 is a Helles as well.
What was that?
Day 3 is a Helles as well.
Oh, even better. All right. Sounds good to me.
Now, back to the questions about the mead. One final question I do have, because it seems that you have an advantage, because this is considered wine if I'm understanding correctly. So you can ship this at least nationwide pretty easily. Is that correct?
Easily, yes. So through Vino Shipper, we're allowed to ship to any state that Vino Shipper allows. which makes it easy. The only downside to that, the upside / downside to that, is you pay a vino shipper fee, which, there's times where we've had people who ordered a single bottle and they paid almost as much for the bottle, if not more or for the shipping than they did for the bottle. Like recently someone bought a bottle of thick and that's $30 retail. They had a membership discount, so they paid slightly less than that, and the shipping was $28.76.
Oh, wow. So that can't go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're paying for the vino shipper licensing for those. The upside to that, as opposed to having a proxy, is if this breaks in shipping, you don't have to deal with any of the stuff. We get a notice and we ship you out a new bottle immediately.
That is pretty awesome. That's one big advantage here. I was actually going to order some of yours before the show until I realized it was too late, because I didn't realize it could be shipped out here being in Arizona. So I'll definitely be ordering some here pretty soon.
It might be a good thing because we're about to get a post up either today or tomorrow. So between now and Christmas, we will be running a Christmas sale with 15% off everything that we load up on a vino shipper. And we are about to have everything that we have right now, which is about, I think there's nearly 14 different options in those varieties. Plus, I have our Christmas release coming up, which will add 2 more to that list.
Nice. Rob, you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I was going to kind of get into the whole shipping thing. Now, one of my favorites that I've had from Four Fires, which actually was a couple years ago, and quick shout out to Brews Brothers, because it was a meetup with their podcast group where I got to try this. Was the very one with the ghost peppers, the Manghost, the mango ghost pepper, which was absolutely amazing. And I had been dying to get some more of it. And I was being on the site, I didn't realize that you guys actually shipped to Michigan. But there was one thing that I noticed that while I was on the site, that it said that there were some products that don't ship to Michigan and Montana. I was curious, what are those products, and why can't they ship to those 2 states?
So, and apparently it's been a law in Michigan since 2014, but they only just recently decided to start enforcing said law. But Michigan is now requiring their own separate state label. So for the most part, if I have a federal label, most of the states with vino shipper are just like, cool, the Fed said it's fine. I don't give a damn. Sell it to my people, send us our tax money, and we're golden. Michigan's like, no, we want you to take it a step further. We want you to have a state label for us too, which would not be an issue. It's not terribly an issue in Montana, just because I guess it's just not as busy at their state office. I mean, Michigan does have just a larger condensation of breweries and meaderies than Montana, I think, ever will. So they've got more people to work with, but the lead time for approvals in Michigan right now is about 12 to 15 weeks, whereas Montana is about 8 days. So for a lot of the stuff like Manghost that we already have approved, it was grandfathered in, and it's just that any of the new stuff is going to have a little delay on it. So Manghost is definitely going to be available on the site here for the sale, and we actually will have 2 separate batches, batch 2 and batch 3 available for that.
Well, I will definitely be putting it in order for that. Of the current lineup, is there a favorite that you have?
It's difficult because I like a lot of our stuff, but I don't drink generally as much sweet stuff. So a lot of the lineup that I enjoy, we actually put on the tap room. We've got some real dry specialties, and I really, really love our house dry cider. Elo Govna. Anytime I do have it on, that's pretty much always in my glass.
Mm-hmm. All right. Get to something off of that a little bit. So one of the things that I had kind of read in some of the articles I was looking at, there was one in particular in 2015, which was pretty much saying that Michigan is essentially the national leader in mead making. Where obviously we have Bee Nectar, Kunin, Schramm's, and all 3 of those, I believe at the time, it was around 2014, that those 3 accounted for about 27 of the top 50 meads in the world, and 7 of the top 10 that at that time in 2014. Obviously, that was about 7 years ago. You guys have been producing since 2018. Do you feel that with the meads that you're putting out, that you feel that you guys have a seat at that table, or do you feel like there's still some steps to get to where those, I don't know if you want to call them the big dogs, but where they are?
I would say that a lot of us in the industry still consider Detroit and Ferndale as the mecca of modern mead. It was for the longest time, they were the holy trinity: Kunin, B Nectar, and Schramm's. You went to Ferndale to get mead in America. That's what you did. But you've got people, Superstition, and a few others on the West Coast, Billy at Lost Cause, and they're all producing, you've got all these meaderies producing absolutely stunning world-class products. And it seems like they're coming out of the woodwork at this point in time. I would think that there's a lot of people in the industry that might find threat to that. I love it. I see it as challenge. I see it as making the industry grow as a whole, pushing everyone to do more stuff. I would say I feel established in the industry right now. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a titan, but I would say that my presence is established. Our product has made a name for itself and is working to push that even harder. We've got some projects that we're working on next year that we're hoping to be able to release that will push the envelope in the alcohol industry in general. We're looking to do some stuff that isn't technically federally allowed to be produced right now. Federal law prevents wines from being made over 24% ABV. And we're looking to kind of shatter that barrier. We're looking to start 2 new mead types named Sage and Sovereign, ranging from 24% ABV to 40, and then 40 to 60.
Wow.
Using an icing method similar to ice blocking.
That would be interesting to see. Another question. Actually, I feel like I have a follow with that, but I will figure that out when I get to that. I think actually Dan might have a follow up on that.
Yeah. If you need someone to test it,
yeah, I'll leave that one with you, Dan. But the one thing I was curious, obviously, we're talking about Schramm's, and we had Ken Schramm back on the show back in March. I guess if anybody wants to take a listen to Michigan Series episode 8, I was curious if Ken Schramm had an influence in you wanting to step into the mead business, and what Schramm's has meant to mead as a whole.
I would say that his product, the Schramm's family product in general, has definitely been an inspiration to us. The mead that got me into mead, though, was B Nectar's 2014 episode 13. I had a buddy, and I was already a craft beer drinker at that point in time. I was already spending way too much money every single weekend at breweries, but I didn't know what mead was yet, and I was like still financially stable. It was great. Well, he poured that for me, and I'm like, this is unreal. What I need to know more about what this is. I've heard of mead, but my experiences are Chaucer, and that's about it. And the next day, I think I went out and I bought like a case and a half of it. I went and bought every single bottle that was in the Toledo area. And I called him to let him know, like, hey, I just want you to know that you've absolutely ruined my life. I'm coming over with bottles. Schramm's absolutely massive, massive influence on us. We love the style. And for me, outside of just enjoying the product, I thoroughly enjoy the process. He gets down to a lot of nitty gritty stuff, especially with the reserves. Enforcing and showcasing not only the local terroir of that area, but land that they've actually worked themselves. I think it's really, really incredible, detailed, and innovative for the industry. Where the industries are at right now, most mead makers don't have that land space or the ability to pull off that level of detail work.
All right. And I guess speaking of that detail work, which, as we have meaderies on, I feel like this question gets asked a lot. So, one of the big complaints that we tend to hear, especially with those who are in the craft beer market, is about the price point for mead is too high. And I feel like there's always this misconception that if you want good mead, then while Schramm's does make very good mead, that everyone has to go to Schramm's. But obviously going to Schramm's can be anywhere from $45 to, if you want to go for the crazy stuff with like Heart of Darkness, you're talking like $160 for a 375 milliliter bottle. But if someone looks at the lower price points, there's that misconception that, well, if they're making it at a lower price point, then it doesn't have the quality. So how do you deal with the consumers who look at the price point and look at mead and say, well, this is too expensive to even try or go after and enjoy, despite the fact that as far as you guys, Schramm's, Bee Nectar, you all make pretty damn good products, but people freak out about that price point.
I mean, you have to consider with mead, it is and pretty much always will be a luxury product. Aside from the fact, and it's an entirely separate point, but Billy Belts from Lost Cause made a fantastic point in a podcast a few weeks ago that of the fermentables, it's the only sustainable one. Everything else is a monoculture and is not sustainable in the long run. Honey will survive as long as we keep the bees around. Getting down to the price point, outside of it being a luxury product, a lot of us are working. I mean, when we first got into it, it wasn't just because we wanted to make good mead. We wanted to make good mead affordable. And a lot of the stuff that we do, even on some of the higher price stuff, we do our best to get the price point down. There are times where that's just not possible. People love to complain about the price of Ken's Heart of Darkness, but the same people would also never go to the store and buy a bottle of Joseph Phelps Insignia, which runs the same price, because that's the fruits that the family are like, I have hand selected these fruits. These are the ones that I have deemed as the best that you're going to get this year. Mm-hmm. This is how much we have. Everything start to finish was me. You're paying for all of that labor, and people just don't understand that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would say that the first time I saw Heart of Darkness on tap at Schramm's Tap Room, which unfortunately is now gone. But when that was on for about, I think it was like $25 an ounce, I was just like, what the absolute hell? But then when I tried it, I said, this for what they do and for what it's made with, it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. I'm going to pass it off to Wendy. She's got a couple questions here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was reading an article and I was very interested because in the article they talked about collaborations and that you guys really like to collaborate with other companies, especially in your area. What is your favorite collaboration and how did it come about?
I would say there's two major ones that come to mind right now, for at least for local. One being a pretty much general all the time release, and we will have these in bottles all throughout next year. Slap into Basil. It is our most popular hydromel. Clocks in at 7%, blueberry and basil. And for the basil, we only use local basil, and we get it from 3 companies. During the summer months, we get from a local herb farmer who is actually the only herb exclusive farm in the entire country with herbaceous. And then we also buy from another local farm called Bittersweet Farms. We like them for the summer months and for smaller batch stuff. But for during winter months and for production stuff, we get, we're partnered up with a local, it was a restaurant first, but they now run a indoor hydroponics lab. So we get basil sometimes in 100-pound deliveries once a month. We have also done a fair bit of national work for collaborations, and I've actually brought one of those today. My favorite one to do, or that we did, and it is one of our more expensive bottles, just again, because of the ingredients that went into it. I mean, these were Pacific Northwest honeyberries, black raspberries, and Montmorency Balaton mix of cherries. It was kind of nondescriptive on that side, just said tart cherries. But for the honeyberries and black raspberries, we paid a lot, and it also incorporated 6 different monovarietals of honey. And that collaboration was done with a Carvin Wilson, who is a major proponent of the meat industry itself. Arguably, the most awarded mead home brewer in the world, and he will never ever go pro. Has no dreams of doing it. Just really, really cares about the industry and has absolutely been a beacon for the industry. And I grew up. I was born in '89. I grew up with awesome '80s cartoons, and one of my favorites growing up was Captain Planet. And who better to showcase that than Carvin Planet?
He's shredded.
That is amazing.
Captain Planet with the goatee.
Yep.
With
That's
our
awesome.
powers combined.
So in that same article, it talked about how your tasting room is more than just a place to go to try the mead, but to learn about it as well. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, why should we make the trek to Mommy to visit your tasting room?
We do. I mean, we care a lot about mead education. I catch a little bit of flack from people in the industry right now, actually, because I'm trying to push for some. I want more cataloging. There's not. I feel like the BJCP on the mead side is a little bit underwritten, but again, there's so much left to learn, and I'm one person's opinion. Sorry, I just spaced and forgot the question.
Why should we visit your tasting room?
Oh, sorry. There we go. So we do push a lot for education. Our bartenders that we have, they really do care about the products. Generally, they're asking me more questions than I could think to actually give or tell them information wise. And it does translate to our customers. Our customer base generally is as inquisitive as a child. I mean, they just always want to know more. They're like, we want more information on the meads. We want to know the process. The community itself has been very supportive, our local community of it, and has been really open and adaptive to learning. So if you're not too acquainted with the meat industry, it could be very inspirational for you or educational. And if you are experienced, it could just be comforting to speak to someone on an equal level for you.
I went on vacation last week, and I went to a wine tasting, and I'm not really a wine person, but hands down, it was the best event I had ever done like that, because he talked about wine the way I talk about beer. So anytime somebody gets excited about their topic, I'm all in. I can't wait to learn more.
Passion is definitely contagious.
What Wendy brought up is a great point, because I'm not a big wine drinker myself, but when being spoken through with the wine and kind of understanding a little bit more the flavors, the profiles, what I'm getting, it definitely changes the experience. But as we kind of mentioned earlier, mead prices can just be a little too high for someone where there's a lot of sticker shock. I show up there and I'm like, oh my God. And especially if I'm, panicking, or I'm not, I don't have enough for maybe one or two drinks and I don't want to mess this up. Do you guys do tastings there, flights there? Like, how do you get the non-casual mead drinker to stay and drink more?
So we do flights, and we have 12 of our carbonated meads on tap, generally at any point in time, 4 stills. But we also have the assortment of bottles available to pour from. So we're talking about the cost side of it, but also on the flavor side of it for the people who don't generally drink wine and are leaning more towards beer. We actually have one. And if I don't have it on, the bartenders have threatened to wring my neck. We keep a dry hopped version of our Lost Slammeron, which is pineapple, orange, guava. And it just drinks kind of smoothie like, and we just dry hop the ever living hell out of it. So it does come off very New England like, especially like the more heavily fruited ones. Stuff like Who Farted's, like Hold My Clipboard, stuff like that. The really heavily fruited, hopped up ones. And we work, being able to do that, I get to work with some more sought after hops. So we play a lot with, Galaxy, El Dorado, the more sought after juice hops.
I was curious what kind of hops you were using within the system itself, because you were talking about the flavor profiles and what hops you were using to dry hop. Are there any any hops that you use for like the meads that you're making? Like, are you trying to? We had a meadery here in Michigan that did like a half sizer, half beer, like I guess you could say Frankenstein monster, where they kind of like just mashed it together. Is there something like that you can make where it's still the 51% mead and still within the mead realm without needing a brewer's license?
Nothing that can involve grain, but I can use alternate sugar sources like molasses, or if I felt like it, table sugar. I generally would not do that, not necessarily for flavor, because a lot of the seltzer producers have shown that, you can ferment just table sugar fairly clean and then fruit it up. But I would never do that, just because the yeast would rock it off and essentially turn everything to taste like gasoline. Fermentations, especially wine side, that go too hot too fast can literally produce, things called fusels that makes it smell and taste like diesel. But we've worked with
able to use like grain beer alternatives like corn or sorghum or buckwheat. Can you?
I don't believe corn. We've looked into doing a crossover with sake. And then I started reading up on sake production, and I was like, all right, well, even if it is legal, I am not prepared. That is a lot more intensive than I had initially imagined. And so here's where a lot of the collaborations will come into play next year. We can partner with a brewery and we can make braggots, but at that point in time, unless they have a wine license, well, no, even if they have a wine license, it would have to then be 51% from grain. So just because of the weird wording, I don't believe I could produce a product that's 51% honey and 49% grain. I think if there's grain in it, the predominant fermentable has to be grain, just because of awesome US word or law words.
The brewery in question, Cellerman's RIP, they had a brewer's license and a winemaker's license, so I don't think they really had too much of an issue.
No, when you have that, you can actually get flex license. So if they had both of those licenses, what they likely did too is they flex licensed their whole facility, which allows them to do kind of whatever they want with those grains and fermentables.
Yeah, this was for them to get around, because the Michigan Brewers Guild, for those of you who are listening and have ever been to a Brewers Guild festival before, for the Brewers Guild to allow for brew pubs, which normally cannot distribute beer, to bring brew pub beers. So, for example, Detroit Beer Co. over in Detroit, Michigan, right in Broadway area, is a brew pub. That means that you will only see Detroit Beer Co. beer at Detroit Beer Co. Nowhere else. But because of the license that was created for the Brewers Guild festivals, they can go to the Brewers Guild festivals. But in turn, that means you can't have mead or cider at the festivals. If you want to dig deeper into that law a little bit, definitely check out the Bee Nectar and Ashley's Cask Ale Festival episode that we had back in 2018. That law came down that week, and we were able to talk to Miranda and Carrie, who are two amazing people within the mead industry, about those rules and regulations. But this was Cellerman's way to try to get around it. But they still made plenty of beer. But when people when they saw Cellerman's mead, cider, and beer, you go to the festival, you expect mead and cider. And as we poured for them, we kept having to tell people there's no mead or no cider, and especially those who may be celiac heavy and are looking for something that's not beer at a beer festival. Sadly, they were shown that they couldn't get it anymore. What are some of your, let's talk beer a little bit, because you did work for Mommy Bay. Are you looking to potentially bring beer into the facility over at Four Fires, or is Mead bringing enough business in for you?
Definitely the end game is to have, I think for us, we'll eventually have all three licenses, brewing, distilling, and wine. But it's mostly just to kind of facilitate more expansiveness on the mead side. So we'd bring in the brewing side to be able to do braggots and to play around in the grain field.
Now, forgive me, my chemistry is terrible. I definitely did not do well in high school, but we had a brewer, Tenacity, on our show a few years ago, and they actually brought us distilled beer and distilled cider. Can you distill mead into some form of alcohol?
Yes, and I know there's a few places that do it. I've tried. I mean, distilled cider is just brandy. I believe there is a name for distilled honey for the product, and if I had to guess, it's probably of Polish origin. But there's nothing that I could name right off the top. We would be looking more for distilling side for the apples to work with a product similar to French Armagnac or Calvados.
Awesome. I'm actually looking at, I decided to Google it while I was talking, and there's a few places that look like make some type of vodka, like a honey vodka.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no like special name like we get with distilling a certain thing, and therefore, distilling X gives you Y, distilling B gives you this. But
yeah.
I was just curious just because, obviously having cider and beer that was distilled, and some of those were amazing. I know Tenacity Craft does whiskey now in Detroit, so for those listening, definitely head up to Tenacity Craft in Detroit if you're looking for a new place to get a distilled drink. But yeah, I'm going to pass it off to Nick. Nick, you've been awfully quiet. I know you got a question for the man, so let's go.
Yes, I do. Since I kind of joined a couple of minutes late, didn't catch how long you were making mead for, but it sounds like you've been doing it for a very, very long time. Is there a mead that you have not created yet, whether it's like a specific ingredient or maybe a certain style? I'm sure you probably did all the styles by now. Is there a certain like mead or mead ingredient that you haven't really tried to do yet that you would like to try sometime in the near future, and why that particular one?
I think our main problem is we have 1,000 different things that we want to do. I would say if there's anything that I specifically want to do, it's working with maybe specific varietals of certain fruits. We've got a project that we're working on where I'm trying to get actually a plum style brought over to the States from England. They're called Victoria plums. They're kind of like more of a pie plum but they have some great sweetness as well as wonderful acidity. And I really do want to do a lot of work with those. So we'll do, we partner / work with a group called SIFT, the Center for Innovative Food Technology. I believe they're a federally run grant program. And if you're from the Midwest at all, you might have heard of a salad dressing called Garlic Expressions. They helped Garlic Expressions to be what they are today. So going from, probably out of 5-gallon buckets or something similar up to the full scale production that they are today. And also if you shop at Costco, Jack's Salsa, again, so they helped them as well too. So we do a bit of work with them, mostly on getting some more, especially in our region, we want to get a lot of local plants grown. So one of the things that we did this year is we harvested a lot of wild pawpaw. We collected the seeds for that, and we're going to start planting those and getting those saplings going next year. We're hoping in the next few years to plant out a wild local grove with staghorn sumac, the pawpaw saplings, black raspberries, blackberries, and other native flora to the Northwest Ohio region. And I'm very excited to do projects like that. Again, that comes back to the Ken Schramm with his grove thing. Like I see him doing that and I'm like, that's cool as shit. I want to do that.
That'd be very cool to see a meadery program or meadery company go through what Garlic Expressions and Jack's has gone through. Because my wife, she loves Garlic Expressions. It's one of her favorites. Who doesn't love Jack's salsa?
Yes.
So
I'm pretty sure I could drink both of them.
Drink the salt. Oh, I don't know about drinking. So I like mine with tortilla chips, but that's just
it's practically gazpacho at that point.
Very much. So let's. I want to stay on the ingredient thing for a minute. Then, so you talked about these plums coming in from Europe. Is there an ingredient that you can't stand making mead with that you want to just try and get away with, but you can't because of some demand, or you just don't really care for it? Because we all have our own, we all have our things that we like and we don't like. Is there one that you just like, I don't really care to make it?
I don't ingredient care for peanut butter items.
Really?
Just any other nut is generally okay. Like, we really love working with pistachio and macadamia, but for whatever reason, peanut butter just doesn't do it for me in alcohol. Like, I'd rather just have it slapped between 2 pieces of wheat bread and some jelly.
That was actually me on this past Saturday after I had been ill for 4 days, and I woke up this past Saturday thinking, okay, I can actually eat something now. I'm gonna go make a peanut butter sandwich. So that's yeah. So let's like nothing, no peanut butter in anything, like liquor, beer. Robert is a big baker, and he loves his peanut butter stouts.
I think it's just peanut butter and alcohol in general.
Peanut butter and alcohol. Okay.
So I've tried what is it? Screwball.
Yep, peanut butter whiskey Screwball. Yep.
Didn't do it for me. But peanut butter foods might be the best foods.
Okay.
Like peanut butter cookies, or just like a scoop of peanut butter popped in the freezer for like half an hour. Absolutely the best.
Okay.
See, and Chris, bacon.
I was going to say that Chris is definitely speaking to my heart, because there's too many people who make peanut butter sandwiches using white bread, and wheat bread is the way to go. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with y'all.
It's the perfect ratio of soft to sponge. They'll never get it. They'll never get it.
They'll never get it.
You know what, Robert? Quick story. Ever since I moved in with my wife, there has not been a single loaf of white bread in this house. It's always either wheat. There's one with a little fruit with wheat, and then there's multi-grain wheat, and that's the only bread we have in this house.
Wheat is the only way to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That is all I have.
She did make sourdough a couple days ago. She did make a loaf of sourdough.
Sourdough works fine with a grilled cheese sandwich, and that's only if using shredded cheese because it melts faster. But other than that, wheat and wheat only.
Maybe we should change our podcast to just Robert Cooks or something like that, or Robert Bakes. I don't know.
No.
All right. Rob, did you want to toss it? Who am I tossing?
We're tossing it to me.
All right, go ahead, Ken. Take over.
Tossing it to me. It is 7:49. Therefore, we are going to be ending this interview. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, especially last minute with Andrew being sick. We hope he feels much, much better. But as we end the interviews, we're all going to ask a final question, something to end on a more lighthearted note. So we will start with Wendy.
Let's see. What is a collaboration that you would like to do that you haven't gotten to do yet?
We're really, really good friends with the guys at Manic Meadery out of Crown Point, Indiana, as well as Bone Flower, who are very close nearby as well too. And we've been talking for a year or two about having those guys down to come and do a collab at our spot. And unfortunately, schedules just don't line up for that. Outside of that, we were supposed to a couple years ago go out and see Jeff at Superstition. I believe Athrea went out there, but the rest of us were back here. Josh at the time, Josh and Andrew were doing most of the production, and I was pretty hunkered down at Maumee Bay. So schedules just didn't interact, but I would say those 3 guys are my biggest ones. Or if I can make it out to the West Coast and hang out with Billy and see all the cool meads he makes there at Lost Cause, any one of those 4 would be a dream.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Wendy.
Rob.
I had seen that you guys had made a Black is Beautiful mead, so that is absolutely awesome. Definitely the Black community thanks you, and you would probably get picked in Dave Chappelle's racial draft. So I'll just leave it with that. I was curious. Who did you guys make your donations to?
So that was actually one of the, when we were talking back about the local collabs, that was probably one of the ones that I wanted to bring up. We tried talking to a few people, and a lot of times we weren't getting responses. We talked with a few people, and they just didn't think that the alcohol donation side of it was a good fit for them. And we had a friend that, linked us up with this group called Hype LLC. It's a women and minority women owned local charity that works directly with local families, with caseworkers. And as opposed to, I know I have friends as caseworkers who generally have anywhere from 50 to 80 families that they work with. These caseworkers have about 8 to 12. So it gets really nice and interpersonal. We knew where the money was going. We know it was going directly to affect and help the local community. And through it, we've decided to now make this project so we should be able to release it about every 12 to 18 months, but we're going to continue to do this project and work with Hype. Really happy with them, their work, and what they do for our community. So we will definitely be continuing the work that Weather Souls laid out for everyone.
That is awesome, because the one thing that has kind of annoyed me a little bit is that there's been places that have just made it as a one-off. And I really appreciate seeing that there's a continuance that happens. So that is awesome.
We just want to keep making friends is all.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Robert.
Nick.
Yes.
So with Christmas coming up, family gatherings even more happening. When you go to your family party and you're going to bring something good to drink for yourself, what are you bringing?
I just got the bottle the other day. And generally, from what I understand, if you go to Chicago, you can get it no problem. But here in the Midwest, in Ohio, people treat it like it's gold, at least enough to go buy it and then flip it for double the cost. My favorite whiskey of all time is just plain Sazerac rye, $25 a bottle retail.
Good stuff.
I could drink that whiskey every single night before bed. So I got a bottle of that locally, and then I had a buddy that was passing through Chicago and said, "Hey, Chris will want one of these," and he dropped that off yesterday. So I am bringing one of those bottles of Sazerac to Christmas.
All right, there you go.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. My final question, and this is probably going to be like choosing a favorite child, but the state of Michigan, we have nearly 400 breweries. All of them you can find using the Michigan Brewery Map app. Cheap plug, I know. Let's go. What is your favorite brewery? Not meadery, brewery.
Tough. It's either going to be Dragon's Mead for like old ales and big stuff. Again, Brewery Vivant for quads and stuff like that. Or it's
Don't pander.
Or it's going to be Old Nation for none of their hops, just all the cans of lagers, all of them. If we're going to do hops, I just want the juices loose from Transient.
Oh my goodness! Which Old Nation has a new lager coming out, which actually I believe hit shelves, called Fritz.
I follow Shane very religiously.
As a good friend of us here too at Better on Draft.
Shane, I always loved the fact Shane was on one of the beta episodes of Better on Draft, and this was before Nick. This was before Dan. It was an episode where this was back when like the craft beer enthusiast groups were like the most toxic places in the world. And I mean, some of them are still bad, but
it's just 8chan now.
2014 was pretty bad. Like 2014, 2015 was pretty bad. And somebody was complaining because somebody had a 4 week old bottle of Two Hearted. And I said, I bet I couldn't even tell the difference between a 4-day-old and a 4-week-old. So I brought Shane in randomly. He was working at like B-Dubs at the time. It's early in the Shane days. And he shows up at my friend's random apartment, and we tried it, and none of us could find the 4-week-old bottle of Two Hearted. Without, like, we had to bring it up to like light to see the very different coloration, whatever the word is. Anyway.
So not even taste. Like you had to like go like, where's Waldo hunting for this information?
Yeah, and I mean at that point we already knew which one was different, so maybe we were even playing the trick on our own eyes, trying to find the difference. You know how like some people do like the little troll where they show you the exact same photo and say spot the difference and your eyes start seeing the difference? That might be the case. But Chris, that's going to do it. For Fires, you guys are located where? Where can they find you? Where can they find your bottles?
We are located in Maumee, Ohio. You can find our bottles locally at shops like Garden Harvest or Harvest, formerly known as Garden Harvest. I like to call them the artist formerly known as Garden Harvest. At Holloway Beverage Center and Joseph's Beverage Center. You can also find our products online at Vino Shipper, and we will have that Christmas sale going until Christmas, starting, I believe, tomorrow.
Awesome. That's when the show goes on, is Saturday the 4th. So we'll make sure to post it. Chris, thanks again for joining us. No matter what you think of your beer or mead, we think it's better on draft. Have a good night.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Peace.